there's some stories of some decommitments, right? DeColdis Crawford, 3-star wide receiver from up north in Louisiana, decommits. The number 1 tight end in the country, 4-star tight end Jake Johnson out of Georgia has decommitted. That's obviously tied to the story of his brother putting his name into the transfer portal. Max Johnson, the starting quarterback at LSU. And like I said, we'll get to all of that. But I think that there was a reevaluation of prospects yesterday.
No doubt.
And it's easy for the story. And this is the tough part about this process, right? Where you give the opportunity to a guy like DeColdis Crawford to put on social media that he's decommitting from LSU when behind the scenes there's probably reevaluation going on and redistribution of scholarships.
Yep.
When you're talking about how they're handing those things out. There's only 25 of them. And this year you do have the capability to bring in 7 transfers from the portal with the NCAA's new rule to kind of help with conditioning to the transfer rule. So LSU's in a nice spot where, obviously the state of Louisiana is overloaded with talent in this process. But the transfer portal
is
and the portal right now is overflowing with talent, specifically in a position of need for LSU like offensive line. So to get somebody like Wilson in and get him on the ground absolutely sprinting towards the finish line next week. You put him on the ground running 120 miles an hour and just kind of drop him onto the trail, and he's so experienced, gifted, knowledgeable that he can keep up right away. That a lot of the news that you saw, I think, yesterday from the decommitment. Now, obviously, the Jake Johnson decommitment is a huge story. He's a big-time tight end that everybody in the country wants. But yesterday, after hearing Max Johnson's news, I think everybody was kind of anticipating when Jake was going to decommit, right? Like at some point, the other shoe was going to drop on just the Johnson story, and that's where we kind of are now.
What do you think happened with the whole Max Johnson? Because I don't think that Max just said, you know what, I'm going to leave. He's the only quarterback on the roster that has starting experience right now, right? Even with Walker coming in, this guy is going to be a junior next year, and he's the only one that has started. And so, and he had 27 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. It's not a bad year. I know
it looked a little different than it looked last year. He progressed.
No doubt.
This is speculative from me of just what happened. And look, I think that people are wondering, was there team meetings? Was there get-togethers? They're in finals this week. The players are off access. They are in the academic study. But I do believe behind closed doors there's individual meetings that are happening, right? Like hey, can I get a one-on-one with you? Can I get a FaceTime call with you, Coach, and let's just sit down for 30 minutes and just have a eyeball-to-eyeball chat? And in my opinion, I think that's kind of what's happening. And Brian Kelly is, and this is the tough part of coaching change. A lot of people think that, it was awkward for LSU because you had a 6-week window where you had the old guy coaching the old team and he knew he was getting fired. So that was a lot of awkward times at LSU. But this is really the awkward time in coaching change. When the guy gets onto campus, and you've got to tell Tommy Moffitt, after 21 years and you're beloved and everybody loves you here in the program, in the city, in the state, on campus, I got to be the one that lets you go. I'm sorry. You also have to have a sit-down chat with the starting quarterback and tell him, we love Walker Howard. I was recruiting the hell out of him up at South Bend. So when he gets here, this thing's going to be wide open again, and he'll be given every intent to start, or it'll be open competition, and this is what I'm looking for in the quarterback. Here's what I'm going to demand from my signal caller, that he be able to do X, Y, and Z. And Max Johnson has the opportunity in today's college football world to step away from that meeting and evaluate what he heard and say, you know what, I could go somewhere else and start next season in a place that if I'm going to have a fresh start, I might as well do it in a place that I feel more comfortable at. And I think that as uncomfortable and awkward as that is for everybody that's going through it, the entire fan base and everybody, the Johnsons, I spoke to Brad last night and he had nothing but great things to say about the LSU experience, but pretty much just said what I did. that if it's time for a fresh start. And after thinking about it, and I mean, you know how hard of a decision that is for Max? To pull the trigger and say, you know what, I'm going to leave. Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave my friends. I'm going to leave my comfort zone of where I know where to park, where I know where I live, where I know where I eat, where I know where the facility is, where I know the trainers, where I know all of this world that's been around me, and say, you know what, I want a fresh start. I'm going to go somewhere else. I get it. I understand it. It's tough to lose a starting quarterback going into the bowl, where now think about where LSU's quarterback room was 365 days ago compared to where it is now. Obviously, it's in shambles compared to that, but you've also got a new coach, and you've got the number one quarterback in the country coming in. And you've got a guy in Garrett Nussmeier that you've had the discussion now on, hey, man, you want to pull that red shirt, you want to start in the bowl game, and you want to get into the spring and have an opportunity to jump into this quarterback competition with you and another young guy? I mean,
I think Brian Kelly has. He has to bring in another quarterback too.
I think he's got odds. I think this is a Walker Howard play 100%.
No, I think.
In my mind, I think
Walker,
he wants to put Walker as the starter, right?
No doubt, but I think they're all. You can't have.
But is
just
that the best
guys.
Case for Walker?
That's what I mean.
I don't know if that's best for Walker.
I don't know either.
I don't know if Walker behind the scenes is saying that I really want that. You know what I mean?
Like, I
don't think that he's demanding that
I want to play
in
either,
year one.
But I think Brian Kelly is just seeing it and going, this is the guy that I wanted at Notre Dame, and if he'd have gotten to Notre Dame, he probably would have started next year, right?
Yeah,
like,
but
if he could have flipped Walker from LSU to Notre Dame, he probably would have been in contention to start. So I feel like if you're just reading the tea leaves a little bit, probably Max Johnson sees how hard Brian Kelly courted Walker Howard. He goes, the deck's kind of stacked against me here. Like, I understand I have my brother coming in, and I've played quarterback here, and we don't know who the offensive coordinator is, but Brian Kelly definitely feels like he has his guy in Walker Howard.
No doubt. I don't think Walker. I think I think from Walker's perspective, he wants to earn that, right? He doesn't want to just be given that spot, and you can't only have two scholarship quarterbacks on roster. You can't just have two guys.
No, I think that's another spot where they go to the transfer
I think
portal.
he gets a transfer, maybe a veteran guy who's solid, maybe there for a year or two, and maybe Walker comes in and takes him a couple extra weeks, maybe an extra month of the season to get the flow of it and ease him into it, and you have this guy who can run an offense that Brian Kelly's comfortable with and just kind of bridge the gap.
Oof.
Right? I don't know if that's – I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I just know as a depth piece –
You can't
have just two scholarship quarterbacks on the roster,
especially two that are freshmen.